up, everybody? I wanted to address this Henry Cavill controversy stuff that's going on right now, and if you are pretty active on social media, especially Twitter, then you've probably seen all this stuff swirling around. But if you haven't, if you don't know what I'm talking about just yet, I will, let me just tell you. Henry Cavill recently did an interview with The Rake magazine. I believe it's a British magazine. Could be wrong, but I think it is. And some of these quotes that he said in the interview made their way online, and now there's a lot of controversy around them. Some people are taking it to mean that he's bashing the DC cinematic universe, and I'm going to put the quotes up. I have not taken it this way. I'm going to put up the quotes, kind of summarize what he said. You can read the quotes on the screen, and then I'll kind of give my opinion, how I interpreted them. So he was, kind of asked about the past DCEU, and he's explaining, he's kind of just addressing the fact that even though the movies prior to Wonder Woman made quite a bit of money, they were not critically acclaimed. And that's not, that's just a fact. Sorry, people. That's not what he said, but that's what I'm saying. Sorry, let me get back to what he was saying. He said they were not critically acclaimed. Yes, they made a lot of money, but DC was trying to do something different. And he also mentions that even if Marvel didn't exist, and say they didn't have a cinematic universe, DC would still struggle because people have a certain idea of what a comic book movie should be, whether that's based on Marvel movies or not. And, DC, Warner Brothers, whatever, took a risk in starting this cinematic universe off from a different point of view, and it did not work for everybody. He mentions that he says that it didn't give everyone this superhero sensation that they want. And he said it didn't give everyone that sensation. He's also mentioning how it's a great time. Oh, he says that, I'll go back to that in a second, sorry. That the right mistakes were made, and that when you can come back from those mistakes and, kind of fix them in a way that pleases more people, then it makes you seem, it's stronger because you're learning from those mistakes and doing things that please more people. And that it's, Wonder Woman was a step in the right direction, and that it's a good time for her movie to have been a success because of the political elements of it. And he also goes on to say that any success in the superhero genre, but specifically he says the DC universe, is something that should be celebrated, and that it's exciting for him, and that he's happy about that. And he also says he wants to continue telling Superman's story. And I think the fact that he uses the word mistake, that's what people are taking an issue with. And I understand that the word mistake has, it comes off as a negatively charged statement if someone uses the word mistake. But, I think the way I interpreted it is that he's acknowledging the fact that, Man of Steel and BVS specifically were very controversial movies as far as audience. I have never seen people so divided over a movie. Especially BVS. Man of Steel has some controversial, had some controversial reactions, but BVS especially was very divisive. There were people, it was insane. You guys remember the responses to it, I think, he's just stating facts. Yes, they made a lot of money, but in a critical sense, in a sense that people responded to it, it was not as successful as Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman, that, you know, also made a lot of money, but as far as the response from critics, from fans, from a general audience standpoint, received a lot of positive reaction. And that's not bashing, you know, people took that to mean, oh, so everything before Wonder Woman in the DC cinematic universe was just trash then, it was a mistake. He's saying, you know, he's bashing Zack Snyder, he's bashing Zack Snyder's vision. Did he even mention Zack Snyder's name? No. Did he mention a specific movie by name? No. I mean, yes, you can say, okay, he says Wonder Woman's a step in the right direction and blah, blah, blah. Yes, I understand that. But he's pointing out that there was a different response to Wonder Woman because it gave more people what they wanted to see in a superhero movie. One of the complaints a lot of people had about Man of Steel and BVS was that Superman was not hopeful and he was not optimistic in their opinion. If you guys have seen my videos, you know I love Man of Steel, I love Henry Cavill's Superman, I love all of that. I didn't have an issue with the fact that they're starting from a darker place and evolving into a more hopeful, optimistic place that people want to see. We know that that's the plan. We've heard that from Zack Snyder and all of them. But before people knew that that was the plan, and even now that people do know, they still want to see a more hopeful, optimistic superhero movie, specifically with Superman. That's what they got with Wonder Woman. So we got a more positive response from a larger audience. Yes, there are those of us that love Man of Steel, that love Batman vs. Superman. But Wonder Woman appealed to a larger audience of people. It was not controversial. It was not divisive. There weren't people that saying that they... I mean, of course there are people that didn't like Wonder Woman, of course. But compared to Man of Steel and BVS, it was not so divisive and controversial. It got an overall positive response, which Man of Steel and BVS didn't. And that's not him bashing it. That's facts. You can ask anyone that. I'm sure Zack Snyder, they know that. WB knows that. And when I think, you know, when he says mistakes, there were obviously mistakes made. He doesn't point out that it was a specific person that made those mistakes. You know, he mentions the term stylistic error. It didn't resonate with a lot of people. It just didn't. Okay, that's not bashing it, that's just stating facts. If you see how divisive these movies are, that's a fact. There are people who didn't like the tone, and that seems like that's mostly what he's referring to. And he, you know, he says even if Marvel didn't exist in, say, a cinematic way, they didn't have movies, DC would still struggle because it's just darker in tone. And, you know, it's comparing apples and oranges, DC and Marvel. They're two different worlds. But, you know, people still expect a certain type of superhero movie, and when they didn't get what they wanted in Man of Steel and BVS, it caused negative response. And, you know, I'm sure one of the biggest mistakes WB made was chopping up Batman vs. Superman and completely just changing what the movie was supposed to be. And they saw that when people got to see the Ultimate Edition and see everything that they took out, there was a much more positive response. Yes, there are still people who didn't like it because of the tone, but it fixed a lot of the issues that people had with the movie. And so we got an overall more positive response. A lot of people saying, you should have released this, you should have released this, you should have kept this in, you shouldn't have took this out. They saw that people preferred the Ultimate Edition. And, you know, they were afraid to take the risk of releasing a 3-hour movie because it doesn't get as many, as many slots in the theaters. It's not going to make as much money, they thought, which I'm guessing that if they would have released the 3-hour edition, it would have made more money. And, you know, hindsight is 20/20. Can't do anything about it now, but I'm sure that they're seeing that, you know, people's response to it. And, you know, with Wonder Woman, and also in Ultimate Edition, there was more scenes with Clark, more scenes with Superman. There was things taken out that people wanted to see. from him that they didn't get to see in the theater. And so, you know, if they're seeing how people are responding, whether it makes money or not, a studio is still going to care, and even the actors and directors for that matter, but especially the studio, they're going to care about critical response, how the audience overall reacts to it, what they want to see in future films that they didn't get in the current films. They're going to take all that into consideration. If they see that a certain type of film is working, guess what? They're going to stick with it. For instance, okay, let's take Marvel for instance. A lot of people claim that, you know, say Winter Soldier is my favorite Marvel movie. And I've seen a lot of people say also on Twitter and stuff like that, we want more Winter Soldier type of stuff, less Guardians of the Galaxy type of stuff, referring to the tone of those movies. Winter Soldier is probably one of the most serious Marvel movies. Guardians of the Galaxy is like the opposite end of the spectrum. You know, just completely and mostly humor. Very different tones, right? Yes, there's an audience for both types of movies. Even though people might like both of those movies, they still might prefer one over the other. A lot of people prefer the type of tone that Winter Soldier had. They're actually saying, we want more of this, less of this one. But guess what? After the Guardians of the Galaxy movies got good responses, brought in a lot of money, you know, people like it, Thor Ragnarok is falling right in line with that kind of tone, from what I've heard, and from the stuff I've seen in trailers and clips. They're doing what is bringing in money and positive reviews. They know that critical response influences people's opinion, it influences how much money a movie can make. They know all that, so they're gonna do what seems to be working. They're gonna do what seems to appeal to a larger audience. Yes, they know that the fans loved seeing, you know, certain things in BVS that a lot of people didn't understand. For instance, the nightmare scene. That was probably one of the most confusing things for most people that didn't understand what these parademons are, what is happening, you know, why is the earth like destroyed? Why is Superman all of a sudden seem like he's bad? Who's that guy popping out of this flashing lightning? Like the Flash, you know. A general audience a general audience is not going to understand all that stuff. Fans, yes, and fans love it. But they realized they need to appeal to a larger audience of people if they want to get more positive responses. And have more movies that are critically successful. Not just, you know, monetarily successful. So that's how I took Henry Cavill's comments. I did not take them as he's, you know, going against the DCEU now. He's flipping on the DC Cinematic Universe. He's bashing Zack Snyder. None of that. You think they didn't know what they were getting into when Zack Snyder chose him to be Superman? You think that he didn't tell him what his vision was for Man of Steel, for BVS, his vision for I want to start in a darker, more serious place with Superman. He's not loved by everyone in the world. He's, you know, he's conflicted with how people are reacting to him. The world doesn't know if they want him around. He has to go through these trials in order, and you know, the world needs to feel like they need Superman. So this is what's going to happen before we move into a more hopeful, optimistic Superman that's maybe a little bit more sure of himself. We're going to start in a darker place, move into a more hopeful, optimistic place. That's how these characters, including Batman, is going to evolve. Because we see that from BVS into Justice League, Batman also has that kind of evolution, thanks to Superman, right? So I'm sure that, of course, Henry Cavill knew what kind of Superman he was going to be portraying in Man of Steel and BVS. He agreed to do it. Obviously, he does not have a problem with Zack's vision, and he's not bashing it. And they knew they were taking a risk doing that, but they probably didn't expect the response to be as controversial and divisive as it was. So now, they're saying, okay, what does the larger audience want? What do fans want? Let's give them that. Yes, there are people who like the darker stuff, but overall, people had an issue with it. A lot of people. They're trying to take into consideration what people are saying and how they're responding so that they can fix it. He's just being honest about that. I mean, he's just being honest about that. He wants to give people the Superman that they want. And we know, okay, we've heard, from Gal Gadot, for example, at San Diego Comic-Con, if you are a Superman fan, you're going to love Justice League. And you know what? It's unfortunate that people are trying to make it seem like he's bashing Zack Snyder and, saying that the movies were mistakes. That's not what he's saying. There were mistakes made. Yes, it's going to happen with every movie, with every franchise, with any cinematic universe. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be things people don't like. And, they're going to try to get it to where the most people that, they can get the most people as possible, as much people as possible to like what they're doing. And, if that takes changing some stuff, tweaking some stuff, then they're going to do it. That's not bashing what they did before. They're learning from it. And so, like I was saying, okay, for example, Chris Hemsworth had said that, one of the reasons they went in a different direction with Thor Ragnarok is because he was getting bored of playing Thor. He was getting bored of the character, kind of losing interest. And I think also some of the other actors from the Thor universe movies were kind of feeling the same way. Anthony Hopkins, who plays Odin. What's the guy's name that plays Loki? Oh, I always forget his name. But he was kind of saying the same thing. They need to change it up, do something different. And, a lot of people didn't exactly have positive responses to the first two Thor movies either. And that's why Thor Ragnarok, for the people that have seen it, is their favorite one. But when Chris Hemsworth said, he was getting bored of playing Thor, losing interest or whatever in the character, did people come out and throw a big fit about that and say, oh, he's turning his back on the MCU, he's bashing them, he's bashing the other Thor movies, he's bashing the movies that he appeared in as Thor, Avengers, whatever? No. Most people probably didn't even know he said that. I didn't even really know he said that until they mentioned it in a video. But even if it was somewhat widely known, you didn't see people freaking out about it, saying that he was, trashing the MCU, trashing Marvel movies and Thor movies and directors and stuff like that. No, and I didn't take it to mean that either. Took it to mean they saw how people responded to the first two Thor movies, which was not, as widely popular. They're not as widely popular as some of, the other Marvel movies. There are plenty of people who don't like the Thor movies, and now, they did something different with this Thor movie, and it looks like it's getting more positive feedback from critics and people who have seen it already in certain parts of the world, saying that it's the best of the three Thor movies and stuff like that, etc. So why is it, he was being honest about how he felt about the character. We don't even see, in this case, Henry Cavill's not saying anything negative about Superman as his character. He's obviously been very dedicated and excited and happy, proud to play Superman. We've heard him and the cast say several times that, Zack Snyder's always had a great vision. He deserves the credit for producing these great movies and having a certain, a unique point of view that he wanted to portray. They thank him for choosing them to play these iconic roles, to give them the chance, this opportunity. Several times we've heard them say stuff like that. And now people are just making it seem like he's bashing Zack Snyder, he's trashing everything, he's saying that, before Wonder Woman everything was bad, and people are just, it's unfortunate that people are spinning it that way, when after we've seen how much he enjoys being Superman, and obviously he stated he wants to continue playing Superman and telling his story. It's unfortunate that people are making it seem like he's trashing it, and we see how much he tries to represent the role he plays in his personal life, and that he's obviously a dedicated part of the, he's very dedicated to his role in the DCEU. He's dedicated to DC in general and WB. We see him buying and reading comics all the time and supporting that. And I don't, if you feel like, he means this as he's trashing Zack Snyder, that's a pretty terrible thing to say about what he said, and trying to spread that around social media. Because I have seen people saying, oh, look, he's trashing Zack Snyder. What? Really? That's what you're going to make it seem like? That's not cool. And people are entitled to their own opinions. Everyone's going to take it however they want to take it, and interpret it whatever way they want to interpret it as, but don't make it seem like, oh, see, look, he's bashing Zack Snyder. I understand that people are emotionally invested. I am too. That doesn't mean that you have to make it seem like he's bashing Zack Snyder, turning his back on the DC Cinematic Universe, So, I don't know. Like I said, people are going to take it however they're going to take it, but don't say that he's said things that he didn't say. And, someone on Twitter told me that this is going to make it easier for me to hop off of the DCEU wagon after Justice League or whatever. If that's how you feel, then maybe you weren't really a fan in the first place. That's not for me to say, but if it's that easy for you to be like, oh, I just don't like their movies anymore, I'm not a fan anymore, well, then maybe, I'm not saying that everything they do is perfect, that you're just going to defend everything they do or say. No, but he's just being honest, so that's my take on it. And, people are going to agree, people are going to disagree, but I just wanted to say what I had to say about it. Sorry it turned into a long video, but I felt like it was a pretty important topic. And so, thanks for watching, guys, and check out the links in the description. I'll probably be doing another episode of the podcast on Friday, so whenever that's ready, I'll have the new link for that. But in the meantime, check out the other one if you haven't. And thanks to my viewers, patrons, subscribers. And thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.